Uh, Alejandro and I met about 30 years ago during a GIS event. And I remember he was a young executive from IBM, very proud of his blue suit and his white shirt. And he was supposed to be making a GIS presentation of the IBM products. And unfortunately for him, he took his eyes off his computer for 15 seconds and somebody stole it. So I saw this gentleman going up on that um, event without any visual aid and deliver a 30-minute brilliant presentation to a standing ovation. We became friends ever since. We're both pilots. We have enjoyed many, many flights together. And Alejandro has, he founded his own company after a brief stint at IBM, and he has kept his company in a country that is not having a very good time right now, which is Venezuela. And Alejandro has maintained his company, and he has progressed. I remember when we were bidding for GIS projects in the early 1990 and 2000 with Autodesk and with SHL Vision, and eventually Alejandro moved on to photogrammetry. And I thought his experience in an economy that is not, the best in a country where everything is difficult was going to be very useful to all of you. So Alejandro, the audience is all yours.
Well, thank you so much, Juan, for the opportunity of being here, and also for remembering such great moments way back when. Well, to all, hope the next couple minutes of sharing where we're at are very interesting to you, and that you leave after this hopefully with good experience on what's going on. And let me start sharing my screen. So here you're looking at a 3D model made with a drone here in Caracas. And I just wanted to start with that. It's a pretty picture. It does carry a lot of information. And as Jamie and David was saying before, get ready for the deluge of information, of data. It's gigantic. It requires a lot of power, a lot of computing power. So, well, it's part of the fun. So here it is, a presentation from GIS to photogrammetry. And yeah, now it can be done. It took us a long time for us as pioneers in this to get up and running. But nowadays it's so automated and things are so well processed and prepared that it is a nicer road to travel. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the motivation behind this, what we've done, understand a little bit of the challenge that you will face as a person going into this business, make a plan, run with it, and I'll give you some afterthoughts on what we've experienced, and hopefully give you food for thought. So our motivation, we come from a GIS one-stop shop, and we needed to have an agile way of getting data into our systems, especially our customer systems. Safety is a great concern. Our field personnel and equipment was being stolen. I don't know how familiar are you with Venezuela, but we've had the last 20 years have been in turmoil, both social unrest, financial, economic, and it's been very tough. And when I say tough, just to let you know, we've had years of 4 million% devaluation of a currency. So if you divide 4 million by 365 days, well, that's a big number a day. So we would go into a supermarket and prices would change as you went in and then came out. So imagine what kind of situation this will be to do a business. And we've managed thus far to survive, and it's been tough, but it's been a learning experience and it's been good. Socially and economic turmoil, it is tough to handle. So, and also we're dazzled by technology. I'm a mathematician and also a computer scientist. And I love technology. I'm sometimes a fool for technology because I'm a very early adopter. We talk a little bit further on that. And of course, generate revenue, because after all, we're a business, and we need, those good old greenbacks to come into the cashier. So we're looking at that, and that's what motivated us into moving into other areas, especially utilizing this technology, which would allow us to render better services. So a little bit about ourselves. Been in business since 1992. We're about 70 people, multidisciplinary staff. We have all sorts of people. I mean, engineers, we have cartographers, we have computer scientists. We run our own platform, so we create our own cloud, and we do a lot of open source stuff. A lot. Since 1999, we switched all of our main stuff to open source, our servers. And if we can do it open source, that's the first choice. If not, well, there are a lot of platforms out there which are great. Jamie mentioned Pix4D. It's amazing. The automation level that right now is at the top of your hands, of your fingers. It's great, and it does facilitate the job for photogrammetry a lot. So back in the business, we were in CAD, and this technology called AM/FM. No, it's not a radio station. Of course not. It's automated mapping facility management way back when in the 80s. And that's when they put together, tied together the graphic part with the database. And they called that because it was dedicated to managing facilities at electric utilities and other service companies that utilize this very expensive technology. And then GIS was born, and more into the field of geography and natural sciences, and it started to become more like something you could have on your desktop. I'm not saying with this that CAD is dead. On the contrary, CAD is very much alive. It's just that the usage of it has changed quite a bit since then. So then you would have these are ancient photos, but the beginning of what we have today. Basically having elements, graphical elements with descriptive data attached to it in a single place. Well, the field survey, that's where we are today. And of course, that has come a long way since the beginning of time, where a lot of manual processes were taking place have been automated now with stations, total stations, and GPS that allows you to accelerate the job that you're doing. And I must say, surveyors, you have a lot of work ahead of you. Don't be thinking that by using a UAV that your job is at risk and that you have no longer a job. On the contrary, and most you will realize that you cannot just fly. I mean, if you just fly and take some photos, those photos have to be attached to the ground, and to that you got to understand geodesy, and you got to understand surveying. So that is a science. That is not just can be taken lightly. So on the contrary, this is a great compliment to your profession. So the evolution of GPS and what allows you to do to correct the models is great, because now with when you're doing photogrammetry, then you can fix these models that you are processing, these photos, into the ground. And yeah, well, that was not me, but this is how this whole thing started, wanting to see everything from above and planning the trips. And Juan's experience can tell you, when he started in the 1980s, well, he was very familiar with this kind of planning and having to do all the calculations by hand and the flight lines, etc., because at that time, GPS was not readily available. So a lot of things had to be done by hand. Nowadays, the digital transformation of cameras has taken place in the airborne. You might ask yourself, well, can I replace what airborne can do with a UAV? Well, not really. I mean, yes and no. And there are some segment areas that does happen. We're going to talk about a little bit further about that regarding scale, precision, and the size of the area of interest that you have to that you're going to survey. With a UAV, you can only survey so many hectares a day, or a flight. I mean, you only fly in 31 minutes. So that's not going to be very much coverage. On the other hand, the precision that you're getting from a drone today with the high resolution cameras, I mean, now you have 40 megapixel cameras, which before were unheard of and required many pounds in an aircraft. Now you can carry it in a small package. So that does give you a lot of possibilities to survey. From digital cameras to laser, airborne laser, you have to have your operator there. And now we're using airborne, UAV LiDAR. So that also brings about, and I'll show you some samples of that, great opportunities. So also satellite imagery. Photogrammetry with satellite is not dead at all. As a matter of fact, more and more satellites are coming on board with higher resolutions. Great thing about that is that you don't need a permit, a government permit. You don't have to go to the field. You don't have to do a lot of things. It's just out there. And sure, the clouds are going to mess with you a little bit. So for that, some other technologies have come about, which is SAR, not as precise as optical, but it allows you to penetrate the clouds and get information. These are stereo pairs, and from that we derive, this is Merida city, and this was done many, many years ago. And it's just a pretty picture to look at because it was done with Landsat data, which is a 10-meter satellite. And this is of Caracas Valley, La Guaira, and the Maiquetía Airport. And then in 1999, a new satellite revolution happened with a 1-meter resolution panchromatic satellite that was launched. And this is the first international commercial image taking with a satellite, which was a disaster, natural disaster that happened in La Guaira. We had a great deluge of water for many, many days, and this landslide happened in this area on the coastline, and over 20,000 people were dead. And we utilized these images were donated by the producer, this is the Iconos satellite, and they donated the imagery due to the consequences of this deluge. And what we did is we overlaid all cartography that we had in digital form. We've been doing cartography for over since we started, so we've been digitizing information. And what you see on the left-hand side are the pre-existing buildings, and then you can see everything that was washed away. And with these satellites, we can do photogrammetry and come up with maps. We can do 1 to 2,500 scale, and it does the job. It's not the high resolution, but if you have nothing, it does a lot. So in 2013, we got into UAV photogrammetry. We created we defined a process, which is basically what everybody does today. You capture, you plan your trips, your flight lines, and from there you have your overlaps and your side laps. Just as Jamie said, yeah, I do agree with the 80%, and the side lap, I tend to go into the 60% because between lines, you want to make sure that you have tie points between the different images, and so that your model really gets tied up. So there you process. Yes, you do need a computer. Nowadays, the software providers offer you online platforms to process the information and create orthomosaics and DEMs, etc. It's a great choice. If you don't have computing power, and you have access to that, the great thing about that is it's pay per use. So if you don't use it, you don't pay, which is great. We had no access to that when we started. We had, due to the economic situations here, we had no access to hard currency, to dollars, that mean. So we had to do miracles with what we had and make things happen. So in 2013, we started integrating components to using fixed wing aircrafts to do long projects. I mean, 25-kilometer corridor with a 200-meter width area of interest, to do it with a small Phantom 2, which was at that time was unthinkable. So we went out, of course, we did the ground control points, we marked and painted the streets, as you can see there, so you can identify that on your photos. Jamie's usage of those little squares is great, but this allowed us to get high accuracy in the models. Then by utilizing software to process the information and derive the models, we did the vectorization. This equipment has evolved quite a bit since what it was back in the day, that you required thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars in specialized machines. Now you can run on a laptop. So here's what we got. We got a orthophoto, and from there you can see the digital terrain model, and also you can derive the digital surface model, which takes away all the man-built stuff. And from that, your contours and your elements that you define as you vectorize the imagery. So precision, and this is what we checked here. What you're looking at is the ground control point 3, and then here you can see that that was at 21.20 meter, and at the lower left you can see from the Imagine Photogrammetry software, the terrain editor from Erdos, that it was 21, 22, 31. So we're at centimeter level once we process the information and adjusted the model. Well, then things progressed quite a few. We continued assembling units utilizing fixed wing. We also utilized DJI platforms, all the Phantoms, all the Inspire have done great jobs and great platforms. But we required to cover longer areas. So we put together this VTOL aircraft back in 2019, which allowed us to cover and also take off from short fields. Part of the problem that we have with the fixed wings is where to land these things. I mean, you require like a landing strip to be able to bring it back down to earth. I mean, we would toss it in the air with the hand, but coming back down, you can't catch it by hand. So the downside to that is sometimes the sensors got mashed. We broke a camera. Things happen. I mean, the wind, you get a crosswind coming down, and it can get ugly, very ugly. So we put together this platform that allows us to have multiple sensors and take care of them. The large multi-rotor aircrafts that are produced by DJI are great platforms because they allow us to put a RGB camera, also a LiDAR, so that we can do corridor analysis. We can do a lot of things that we're doing today. For example, this is the plantation that we flew in Chile, and we have a characterization of the trees. And from there, since the LiDAR penetrates the forest, we can know the other parameters that are necessary for forest inventory, which are the top and also the length, the height of the trees. We've done models for cities. We do orthophotos. We've been having a lot of fun with this for several years. Doing urban studies and feeding that into the GIS. This is a corridor analysis for pipelines. As you know, Venezuela is an oil-producing country, so there's a lot of installations here that require monitoring and updating. So we've been going at that slowly but surely. Again, looking at the forestry, you can see the classification and it's amazing what can be done. I mean, with satellites, you can only see so much. Now with the UAVs and the cameras, it's great what you're getting. We also got into mobile mapping back in 2015. We put an antenna together, and it's great stuff that comes out of it. We mixed a ladybug camera with a laser, and well, the information that you derive is great. You can do analysis of roads, of inventory, and also create maps, cross sections, and see what's there. So other things that we do is application development. We have a heavy shop doing application development, and that basically utilizes the information that we come about to do asset tracking. We have our own private cloud, and we create an E911 mobile application here for Venezuela. So basically, that's a little bit of our background. I'm sorry to take so many minutes, but I think what's interesting to understand where we're coming from, and that today it's a lot different. I mean, I think the challenge moving forward for a surveyor will be to understand, what your existing business is and how you want to expand that with this new technology that will allow you to service a lot of clients. Of course, you want to produce better and faster results at a lower cost. But so it's important that you decide what it is that you want to do. Because depending on your products and services that you define, you're going to require a multidisciplinary team. And those can be in-house or not. I mean, you don't necessarily have to own everything. I mean, at the end, if you own the customer, I think you own the business, if you ask me. But if you are one of those guys like we are, that you want to build everything yourselves and you want to, be the first hand trying to do it, well, you gotta do some homework. Not to scare you off, but there are many things that are not just about flying. They're not just about geodesy or surveying. They're about regulations. They're about rules. You got to define what your role is. Are you just going to be a pilot or operator? You want to certify your company? Because if you do, that's becoming an aviation company. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Or you just want to be a UAV integrator. That does work as well. So what you got to do is look at the implications, depending on what you decide, what you're going to have under regulatory. It's great that the rules today are in the ground. When we started flying in 2013, well, we could do just about anything. But that's not, I mean, that's good, but that's not good. Because if you really think about it, we're going into the aerial space. I mean, we're bringing up an aircraft at a lower altitude, but we're bringing up an aircraft that can cause an accident if you're not aware of who's flying around you. It either be a helicopter, a low altitude flying fixed wing aircraft, or whatever it is. So the airspace has to be controlled, and it's good that the regulations are there. Also, the implications require certifications. You got to go. Your pilots got to go get certified, so that you know that things are being done correctly. I mean, this is not just about technology. This is about operating an aircraft, and that requires certain skills that you want to make sure that you're honed, that you're using them, and you want to make sure that you're qualified. It's very easy to break an aircraft. Very, very easy. Most programs fail because of that. Pilots don't get enough training, and they say they're up and running and ready, and something strange happens, and you lost the aircraft, and you can lose a lot of money. So that's got to be careful. Technological implications. Well, there are so many. I cannot tell you. When we first started, there were a lot of companies offering, they were the first out offering new products, and they were quirky. And sometimes they keep on being quirky. So be aware what you're choosing and how you're choosing it, because trust and tried is always good. It allows you to save some arrows on your back that can be costly. And the human implications, your personnel and also the people who are around you. I mean, once you're flying, you have an object there that if it goes out of control, you could hurt somebody. So you got to take that into consideration. Above all, make a plan. What it is that you want to do and start running with it. So in the plan, you got to look at technology maturity and risk. And I'm going to talk a couple minutes about this because it's important that you consider three different perspectives. One from the manufacturer, another one from the customer, another one from yourself. And I brought about this image from a great book that was written by Geoffrey Moore back in the day, back in 1991, which was called Crossing the Chasm. And it's so interesting how relevant and how today even it's worthy of understanding. Because if you look at the chasm, it's an abyss, and you don't want to go into an abyss. And if you look at the different perspectives, you want to make sure that if it's a manufacturer, that he has crossed that chasm, because otherwise you're buying into, as an innovator or as an early adopter, into technology that might not render what you're thinking that's going to do, and you might end up, getting into trouble. So you got to analyze a little bit of how, for example, your customer, how much technology can he absorb? Is he ready to adopt, for example, all this data that he's going to have, or does he want the end result? If he just wants an analysis, well, you got to be able to deliver that analysis, not to make him, buy machines and buy all these things that in your mindset or the manufacturer's mindset it's what's great for business. It could not be great for him. In that same note, if you apply that to yourself as a person or as a company, where is my company positioned in this technology adoption scheme? Am I more conservative or am I more risk taker? If you're a risk taker, well, maybe you'll be looking into the new whistles and what's coming on, and you want to hang in there because you think you can manage it and do make a difference, and that what makes the difference in your business. If that's the case, that's great. But if not, you might be falling into a trap that the manufacturer wants you to use his equipment, so for him to cross that chasm and be able to excel in his business. It's interesting. This is something to look into because you got to analyze where you're putting your money and what you're going to get after that. So create the roadmap. What you're going to procure, where you're going to procure it. Training. You'll have to go out and get training, certification, and look what's out there. There are a lot of offerings in the market. Every day something new comes up. Mainstream is good, and there are service providers out there that can help you out. Maybe you don't need to go buy an UAV, but you're a great surveyor. Maybe you have a friend that's a pilot, and jointly you can deliver a product and not necessarily have to go out and buy it. So, it's good to understand. It took us many years to get into this because I guess we were very early adopters of the technology, and we had no access to real big funds, so we have to make our way whichever way we could. At the end of the day, you're not alone. There are a lot of resources out there, a lot. So this could be great. So an afterthought. Well, you got to understand what it is that you're surveying. You cannot do everything with just one thing. I mean, a single UAV, a multi-propeller, DJI Phantom 4, Jamie can tell you, can only do so many acres at a day. The amount of data that's going to produce is gigantic. So if you really understand the size, the area of interest, the size that you want, and what's the end product, Then you can do a mix and match strategy between satellite, between airborne and drones. Of course, the prices are different. Of course, the resolutions are different, and the accuracy, of course, changes. But sometimes the areas are so large that it's just humanly impossible to cover it unless you go out and buy, this and many drones, and hopefully everything will turn out, fine, and everything will get stitched up. But I tell you, it's not. There's not one thing that you can use. We use multiple platforms today, depending on what customers want and need, and with that, we can render the service that's required by our customers. And yes, if you decide to become a certified operator, you become an aviation company. This is our certification. This is number 3. There are only 4 in this country, and 2 of them are learning institutions. So we're only 2 operators here. And to do this, it took us 3 years. 3 years of doing manuals of you work just like an airline. You have to have personnel dedicated to safety, to maintenance, to operations. You have to comply with a lot of rules. So, maybe you don't have to go this way. I'm sure in the United States, there are quite a few companies that offer you pilots, that offer you ways that if you want to become a pilot, to be able to offer jobs, etc., and operate within the controlled airspace. So surveyors, you got nothing to fear. There's a lot of work for you. Your job is safe. People, like I said before, to do cartography, photogrammetry, well, there are a lot of parameters there. They're not just pretty pictures. They're not just flying the drone and you're there. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of engineering to be done. So thank God you're there. It's a great time to jump into the wagon. Why? Because nowadays you have availability of many choices. Prices have gone down, accuracies have gone up. What you can deliver is great. So also the COVID, it's generating different opportunities because you need to go to the field and you don't have that much staff. So with a drone, you can cover much more area than you would with a full-size equipment. Regulations are clear, so that's good. That is good. And it's great technology. The processes, like Jamie said, have been automated. So even starting from your flight planning to your actual flight, everything is there, and it's a lot easier. So you don't have to do all these calculations of derivations of dealing with the wind, etc. It's there. Also the processing, it's great. Before it will take you, I don't know how many days. Here you have it now in minutes or hours, depending on the amount of data that you are surveying and the end process the end product that you want. And yes, do prepare yourself for the data deluge because it's huge. I mean, the processing power that you require and that the amount of storage that you're going to have is great. I mean, think about it. When you take a picture on your phone, how much space that covers. So, for example, if you're flying at 30 feet, at 30 meters, which is 90 feet, you're going to have a photo every so many meters. And, once you start flying several hectares, you're going to have thousands and thousands of pictures to deal with. It can get greatly huge. And then you talk about the digital elevation models and digital terrain models, same as well. They occupy a lot of space. And then you go into processing all that to create information. So you put it into a GIS and start deriving information, and it gets big. And remember, always safety first. Cannot stress it enough. It's an unmanned aerial vehicle. So it's a vehicle, it's an aircraft. You're out there, just like us pilots. You got to be out there making sure that all your T's are crossed and all your I's are dotted, because you're flying an aircraft. So even if you're on the ground. So that's basically what I have, Juan.
Excellent. Thank you, Alejandro. Um, yeah, I knew this was this was going to be fascinating. I haven't heard this story with so much detail, but I knew it was something along these lines. There is a there is a question from the audience, uh, Alejandro. One of the things that I believe that I'm seeing as a commercial UAV operator is the increased integration of UAVs within companies rather than reliance on outside service providers. Do you think that independent service providers, flight and preliminary data analysis services have a future? Any thoughts on the best way to build relationship with enterprises that could become customers?
Yes, I do think there is a great market. And I think you have to segment the customers that you're targeting. I mean, large corporations have large pockets, and they usually have personnel that's prepared and that they want to have a run at it. I mean, a professional person who's running a UAV shop within a large engineering company, you bet he wants to put his own drones and put his own program together. But at the end of the day, the specialization needed by the person to render the services sometimes makes it very uphill. I mean, we've encountered large companies that have made decisions. The person has made decisions because he wanted to give it a shot and made mistakes, made serious mistakes, which cost them a lot of money. And at the end, we had the opportunity as a very small company to come in and render services. But we had to prove to them the mistake that they had made, which is not a nice situation to be in, because you're saying to the guy, listen, the guy who's going to hire you, listen, you made a little boo-boo here. So we got to come and fix it. And they usually try to say, no, why don't you use the stuff that I did? And guess what? They didn't do ground control points. They flew at different heights. They didn't do their homework. They just flew. And, it doesn't quite work that way. You have to be prepared and you have to be planned. There's a lot of opportunities. We're making our own VTOL integration. And there are VTOLs out there that are flying, and sure, they cost a lot of money, but we think we can do one that's a little better. So yes, give it a shot. I don't give up. I think if you have the willingness, if you're a small shop, yes, there are opportunities. Of course, there are.
Okay, there's another one. How do you deal with delivery with data to customers? And I'm going to be talking about that in a few minutes in the presentation from Argentina, because they found a very, very original way to deal with it. But let's hear what you have to say about it.
Well, the cloud's amazing. I mean, you have services out there that is for free. I mean, you just need some bandwidth, and that's about it. I mean, what data does the customer need and want is very important to define, and where's that customer located? I mean, if the customer is just down the street, here, take a hard drive and give it to him. That's sometimes better and looks nicer. But for sure, speed, it's a consideration, because once you start moving things up to the cloud, which are humongous files, they can last a very, very long time. Especially down here that we don't have internet speeds that you guys have. It's prohibited.
Right. One aspect of doing in getting involved in aviation is the issue of support. And I've always wanted to talk to you about this, because when I was director of sales for Trimble for Latin America, we had to deal with crashes, right? It was we were selling total stations and GPS units, and suddenly we got a call that my plane crashed. And we're in the middle of nowhere and we need help. And sorry, I found myself, more of an aviation, support company. And I thought of, the NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, arriving at the crash scene. And they companies that manufacture UAVs have a very strong protocols for support. They have the logs. And thanks to those logs, we were able to discover, if the person took off with 20 knot tailwind and crashed, well, what do you expect, right? So how do you deal, especially in a country where, receiving spare parts and support is so difficult? How do you deal with the support issue with an aircraft?
Well, because of regulations, we had to put together a shop that's what do you call that? Certified by the authorities.
Oh, maintenance shop.
Maintenance shop.
So you were a part 145.
Correct. Because otherwise, if you touch the UAV, then you cannot go back in the air. It's got to go recertified, just like in the aircraft. Exactly the same.
Wow.
Yes. We do a lot of analysis on crashes because we get a lot of crashes, a lot. Not just ourselves, the customers, and they usually say it wasn't my fault. So, few crashes have been parts that have broken. I mean, pieces of the aircraft that just flew apart because it didn't have the proper inspection before flight, the pre-flight. It could have been avoided. So what we're doing is bringing parts, as we can. If an aircraft fails, we try to, cannibalize it and certify what's left that can be used, and that's about it. Most manufacturers that are down here, DJI, what we do is we bring the spare parts. Sometimes we send somebody out and bring it back.
Wow.
It's tough. You got to get very, very creative, But hey, it goes well. We've been able to get the aircraft back in the air and do the service. So
is the license in Venezuela different from the pilot license, INAC pilot license?
Exactly the same. We have to have medicals every 2 years. If you're below 50, I'm over 50, so I gotta do it every year. You gotta do certifications. You gotta do recurrency. You have to have your log. You have to present your log. All that, just the same.
So they treat it as the same. Yeah, here in the U.S. with Part 107, that changed, but there was at the beginning there was the fear that it was going to be the same.
Here's the same. Here you have to go exactly through the same loop that we go as pilots.
Okay. Alejandro, thank you very much. We're reaching to the end of our time. I really appreciate and thank you very much. This was exactly what I had in mind when I talked to you about, let's talk about, the implications of moving from just doing land surveying to photogrammetry. And thank you for lifting the spirits of land surveyors who are thinking that this is the end.
Absolutely not. We need them. I mean, if people don't realize that accuracy matters, they don't know anything. They're just looking at pretty pictures. They're not looking at what's necessary.
Okay. By the way, you comment about me doing manual calculation. No, I had a calculator. just for your information. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Alejandro. Bye.